Welcome to Monday Motivations, 52 Weeks to a More Purposeful You. Corry Mendoza here, and we have Melissa Rawluk. She's going to be our final guest on our Monday Motivation series. It's been 52 weeks to a more purposeful you, and our last topic is on reflection. So, how was it? How was it reading this topic on reflection for you?
I mean, it definitely really hit home because I can relate a lot to your experience. It felt good to know that I wasn't the only one, and the reminder of the importance of reflection and getting perspective. And it's all about the way that you look at what's happened in your life. Not that it's happened to you, but for you, for growth. It was great.
Yeah, it was crazy just reading this to prepare for the topic. I hadn't read this topic since I think I wrote it in 2000 when I published the book in 2011. So what the topic is on reflection is a journal entry that I had written in December of 2010. And when I read it in today's time, which is 2022, 12 years later, there was just a lot of things that I forgot that I had, what I was reflecting upon at that time. What would you say was the kind of the heart of the message on reflection?
I mean, for me personally, I feel like it was the importance of reflection to get perspective on, yes, things are hard, but through the challenges, it allows us an opportunity to be grateful, to be grateful for what we've learned through the experiences, and to minimize, while we might have lost a lot of things, through that loss, you gain more. And there's something really amazing about that, to be able to just hone in on what's really important and have that opportunity. Sometimes life gets just way too crazy, and sometimes you need to lose a lot of things to understand.
Purge. Yeah. Well, I like how you said through reflection, there's perspective, because a lot of people don't pause to reflect. Our society, our culture, it's go, go, go. And unless we really take time to pause and reflect, we don't even have the possibility to shape our perspective. So it kind of starts with making that time to create, reflection time. How are you with creating reflection time?
Oh my gosh, I'm like a self-growth junkie.
Me too.
So people ask me, do you ever think you reflect too much?
Maybe.
And yeah, sometimes you can, reflect too much. Sometimes you just gotta go.
Yeah.
But gosh, what was the question actually?
I don't think I asked the question very thoroughly, but maybe a better question is, what are some reflection practices that you do?
Okay. So obviously, whenever I feel like I'm struggling or in a tough spot, that to me is always a key indicator that I need to slow down and put some thought into it and reflect. Just recently, actually, I realized there's something about me that really bothers me. Because I'm a self-growth junkie, I'm always, and a recovering perfectionist.
Me too.
So I'm trying to be okay with the fact that I'm human and I'm not perfect, but there's something I don't like about myself. And I kept trying to shut it down, figure out, I was reflecting on it, I don't like this, and figure out ways to get around it, to not do that little habit I have. And finally, I realized, I think it's not only taking the time to reflect, but being willing to see your reflection.
Yeah.
And how you're reflecting in the world and how you're showing up. And I realized that this thing I didn't like about myself or this thing I didn't like about what I did, which had to do with other people. I realized it's really something I do to myself, and it's not about the other people. So, gosh, you have to be willing to be super, super vulnerable though. Like even with yourself, You know, I mean, it's one thing to tell other people, but like to be that open with yourself and be willing to be like, wow, this is a me issue, or I mean, it's tough, but that's the indicator for me. If I'm struggling with something, it's like, okay, there's something to learn here.
Yeah.
And I love learning. I mean, without reflection, there is no growth. There's no learning opportunity. Without growth, you're just stuck in this stale life happening to you thing versus life happening for you. Yes. And are you willing to see the opportunities in it?
Yeah. Well, and I like that you're bringing up, you didn't use the word self-compassion, but I think that's kind of the piece that when we reflect, it is a vulnerable thing to do. It can be a painful thing to do. So I actually heard, I'm not going to take credit for this. I heard this week, that self-reflection without self-compassion is self-warfare.
Yes.
Or personal warfare. And it is really true, because I also am a self-growth, self-development junkie, I guess, recovering perfectionist. And I think the rest of this year, I'm really going to focus on self-compassion, because it's not always about just fixing ourselves and changing, but reflecting to, I think like there's a lot of change and growth that can just happen from noticing and not
100%.
judging.
100%. Because then I feel like when you spend all that time on noticing it and then going straight to judging it, you miss, it's like the need to talk about something with somebody, right? Like something traumatic happens to you and you figure, why bother talking about it? It's just going to bring up all these feelings and not going to get anywhere. But there's that, I'm sure everyone's experienced that point where that's just the refreshing feeling of like just needing to talk about it. And I think that's the same thing, just needing to like see it and sit with it and reflect on, instead of needing to fix it. Because it does just jump right over the self-compassion piece. And then you're in self-hate because you're like, why am I like this, and trying to fix it.
Yeah. And I also think or not just self-reflection, but reflection in general for self-awareness is powerful. It's also powerful for us to use reflection, not just to reframe the hard times, but even maybe to produce gratitude and appreciation. So maybe say a little bit about reflecting to look for the positives or the gratitude, not just the learning.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's totally true. And because I'm a self-improvement junkie, I'm always looking in the learning opportunities, but I do that too. I mean, when I have a lot of people talk to me because I guess I'm a good natural therapist.
She's a good listener.
I guess. And I love learning through other people's experience. And that's where I get a lot of that kind of reflection is after I take that in, after I try to help somebody in that way, I sit with that and I just have so much gratitude for all the things that I do have and how maybe I'm not struggling with that piece or that I've learned a lesson through that, and just having gratitude, honestly, for all the lessons that I've learned, and all the hardship that I've been through. Yeah. So I've come to actually get kind of excited. I know this is really weird and creepy, but I kind of get excited when bad stuff is going to happen, because, well, not bad, but maybe possibly traumatic
opportunity invitations.
Right. Losing a job, like something traumatic happening. I kind of, while it's scary, I kind of get excited about the thought of like, if that happens,
what's next?
That means there's something really, really cool and exciting to learn through this. And that's just, God thinks that I'm ready to take that next step into something even more amazing. So it's like having that shift with the gratitude for anything and everything, whether it's positive, negative, whatever. It's
well, they always say that hindsight is 20/20. And so when we reflect back, it is an opportunity for us to gain that hindsight, the improved perspective, and wisdom to carry us forward. But I think it's a balance of reflection time. So that's the hindsight. Foresight would be time for visioning for the future and how do we want, it to be better. And then insight is being present, so that there has to be a balance.
Right.
So
that's 100% true too. Cause I know for me, I can get stuck a lot in the present and the past. In reflection. It's really hard for me, I think, to reflect a lot into the future.
Yeah.
Because then that allows like possible disappointment or failure or whatever.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because I notice, okay, so there's Strengths Finder is a book and an assessment out there. Well, there's 34 strengths. One of the strengths is futuristic, and both Rusty and I are high in futuristic strength, where we like to dream about the future. We like to envision. And I remember when I first started coaching and doing like vision boards and goal setting, I did not realize how uncomfortable it can be for some people to spend time thinking about the future, which can affect their ability to plan. So yeah, it's like, but then if we spend too much time thinking about the future, then we're not being in the present. So it really boils down to balance.
And I think that's why it's important to have surround yourself with different kinds of people.
Yeah.
Because they bring, I know with you, I mean, I love you dearly. And you're so good at that. And you're brainstorming, helping me think about things in the future that I'm not really thinking about, because what I'm really good at is the present moment, like too good at it, because then I can't, I kind of get stuck in just that. And like, then life can kind of happen to you. So the balance is surrounding yourself with.
Yeah. Well, it's been awesome to talk about reflection. As we start to tie this topic up, I kind of want to segue into, I forgot to introduce her formally with her bio and who she is and what she does. So, but I'll just share. So Melissa is a fitness, nutritionist, coach, trainer. And this year here in what year is this? 2022. So starting around, was it March? We started working together. And she has taught me a lot about nutrition. Man, was I not eating enough protein. So she has helped me, with tracking and counting macros and doing workouts. And so right before we started this Monday motivation reflection topic, we were reflecting on my fitness program that we did together and reflecting on what worked, what could we do different, and then we shifted into the future thinking,
right?
Like what's next? What services is she going to provide? So before we wrap up this topic, is there any last words of advice or wisdom that you want to remind yourself and maybe inspire others with regarding the topic of reflection?
I think it would be, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to reflect, because I think a lot of people are, right? Whether it's the fear of failing in the future or the shame from the past or not being enough in the present. It's having a joy for reflection, because it's an opportunity to grow and be a better you and have gentle, loving care with yourself. We're human. None of us are perfect. And we all mess up, and it's, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to switch it into the positive and gain something from it, or get stuck there?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I agree with you. Reflecting, the way that I would say it is that it helps keep us humble. And humility is not just not thinking of ourselves above other people, but it's also not thinking of ourselves as less than. So when we're reflecting, we can celebrate all the awesome ways that we showed up, and we can also see areas for how we would want to do it better next time. And I know for me, just a little bit on my faith. Right now I'm listening to the song. It's on replay again and again, The Goodness of God. And like, for the challenges that I'm facing today, sometimes I lose perspective and I get overwhelmed. But when I reflect back on all that God has carried me through, and how he has showed up and how he has provided, it helps me surrender and release my fears and anxieties and worries, because I'm like, geez, like, I don't want to go through what I've been through before, but if I've gotten through that, then I can make it. He'll take
Oh,
care of us.
I could not agree more with that.
Mm. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this 52-week podcast series. It was our first podcast. I'm going to be using the rest of the year to kind of pray and get clear on what is the next podcast series. So if you have any ideas, please post in the comments. I'm probably going to be sending out a survey to get some input on what would be some good podcast series. But thank you, everyone. If you don't already have the book, Monday Motivations, 52 Weeks to a More Purposeful You, it's on Amazon. Reach out. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.